The fortune made from a forgotten laptop. It sat untouched for years. No alarms, no alerts, no indication that anything valuable was inside. Just an old machine slowly gathering dust. And yet, hidden behind that dark screen was a fortune large enough to change a life, or end one. To understand why this story matters now, we need to revisit the earliest days of digital money, a time when value felt hypothetical, when coins were mined for curiosity, not profit, when storage felt like an afterthought. Back then, security was casual. Keys were saved on desktops. Passwords were reused. Backups were optional. No one imagined these numbers would matter. The idea of future value felt unrealistic. Why protect something no one wanted? Why prepare for a world that didn't yet exist? That assumption would become one of the most expensive mistakes in modern history. As prices began to rise, attention followed. What once felt like a toy started to feel like an opportunity. And opportunity reframes memory. People searched old hard drives, recovered forgotten wallets, scanned emails and forums for lost credentials. Some succeeded, many didn't, because digital money doesn't forget, it doesn't forgive, and it doesn't care how much time has passed. If the key is gone, the value might as well be erased. Not stolen, not redistributed, simply unreachable. That reality shocked newcomers. Money had never worked this way before. Banks could reset passwords. Institutions could verify identity. Here, loss was permanent. This wasn't a flaw. It was a feature, a system designed without exceptions. The forgotten laptop wasn't unlucky. It was inevitable, because freedom without responsibility always presents the same bill, and eventually, everyone pays it. As the value climbed higher, the stories grew darker. Not just about lost devices, but about misplaced trust. People stored keys with friends, with companies, with platforms that promised convenience. And once again, control quietly shifted away from the individual. Early custodians felt safe. They looked professional. They spoke the language of security. But beneath the surface, the same old risks remained. Laptops failed. Drives corrupted. Companies vanished. And with them, access disappeared forever. Unlike traditional losses, there was no villain, no fraud to prosecute, no institution to demand restitution from. The system had done nothing wrong. It enforced the rules exactly as written. That precision forced a brutal lesson. Ownership was absolute, so was responsibility. For some, the realization came too late. They remembered mining coins on outdated machines. They remembered reinstalling operating systems without backups. They remembered laughing at warnings that now felt prophetic. Each forgotten wallet reduced supply permanently, not through destruction, but through inaccessibility. Value locked behind mathematics, not malice. Ironically, these losses strengthened the system. Scarcity increased. Remaining coins became more valuable. Mistakes became part of the monetary policy. This was money without mercy. No forgiveness cycles. No recovery departments. Just finality. For many, that was unacceptable. They called it cruel, unforgiving, inhumane. But supporters saw something else. Clarity. In this system, outcomes were honest. You kept what you protected. You lost what you neglected. No exceptions for status. No rescue for regret. The forgotten laptop became more than a tragedy. It became a warning. In a world where control belongs to the individual, so do the consequences. As awareness spread, behavior changed. People stopped treating keys like passwords. They treated them like vaults. Cold storage, redundancy, physical separation. Entire industries formed around fear. Hardware wallets, security audits, recovery services, all built to protect a string of characters. That could never be reset. But protection introduced a paradox. The safer the storage, the easier it was to forget. Hidden devices, buried backups, encrypted files no one remembered how to open. Some losses happened slowly. A laptop discarded during a move. A hard drive wiped by accident. A passphrase half remembered, then lost forever. Others happened instantly. Fire, flood, failure. One moment of negligence erased years of patience. As prices surged, regret intensified. Stories surfaced of people sitting on fortunes they could see, but never reach. Balances frozen in time. Mocking reminders of early disbelief. Psychologically, it was devastating. Knowing wealth existed, but was mathematically unreachable. Not stolen, not destroyed, just locked beyond human access. This forced a cultural shift. Digital money wasn't just an asset. It was a responsibility system. One mistake carried lifetime consequences. Traditional finance had softened edges. Insurance, recovery, appeals. This system removed them all. That removal wasn't accidental. It was philosophical. True ownership demanded absolute control. And absolute control demanded absolute risk. The forgotten laptop wasn't unique. It was multiplied thousands of times across the world, each loss reinforcing the same message. This system does not protect you from yourself. And that truth reshaped how people defined wealth. The lesson wasn't about technology. It was about ownership. For the first time, money didn't live in institutions. It lived in responsibility. And responsibility doesn't negotiate. The forgotten laptop became a symbol, not of bad luck, but of a new kind of reality, one where wealth answers only to preparation. This system didn't care about intentions. It didn't measure effort. It didn't recognize regret. It only enforced outcomes. That finality changed how people thought about value. Money was no longer something you trusted others to protect. It was something you guarded yourself, completely or not at all. In traditional systems, mistakes were absorbed, spread across insurance pools, written off as errors. Here, mistakes were personal and permanent. That shift was uncomfortable, even brutal, but it was also honest. No hidden safety nets, no quiet bailouts, no second chances written into policy, just consequences aligned perfectly with behavior. Over time, this clarity altered behavior. People became cautious, deliberate, aware that every shortcut carried weight. The forgotten laptop wasn't tragic because of what was lost. It was tragic because of what was learned too late. In a world of absolute ownership, freedom and risk are inseparable. You can't choose one without accepting the other. That's the price of money without permission. And the promise. There was a deeper irony buried in all of this. The systems that developed around protecting keys were, in their own way, recreating the very structures digital money had been designed to replace. Custodians, intermediaries, trusted third parties. When self-custody proved too demanding for most people, trust migrated outward again, back toward institutions, back toward platforms, back toward someone else's server. The circle closed quietly, not because the philosophy was wrong, but because the human appetite for convenience consistently outpaces the human appetite for responsibility. Each generation of users rediscovered the same lesson. Freedom requires infrastructure, not just technical infrastructure, mental infrastructure, the habits, disciplines, and rituals of treating something fragile as permanently, irreversibly precious. Most people learned this the hard way. A few learned it by watching others. The forgotten laptop was never just one story. It was every story about the distance between what something is worth and what people are willing to do to protect it. That distance has always existed in every system, with every form of value. But here, the distance had consequences. That couldn't be softened, and that changed the relationship between people and money in ways that are still unfolding. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. The forgotten laptop endures as a story because it contains a question that technology cannot answer. How much responsibility can people actually carry when the stakes are invisible until they aren't? The early adopters who lost fortunes weren't careless people. They were reasonable people, making reasonable decisions in a context that didn't yet carry the weight it would later acquire. That's the cruelest part. The mistake was made before the mistake existed, and no amount of hindsight, Change is the mathematics. The system never asked for sympathy. It never offered it either. It simply continued, indifferent to the gap between what people understood and what the rules required. That indifference was not cruelty. It was consistency. And consistency, over time, became the most reliable teacher the ecosystem ever produced. The